Giant blueberry smashes record for heaviest ever. A farmer in Australia has broken the record for growing the world's biggest blueberry. The giant berry weighed 20.4 grams. This smashed the previous record of 16.2 grams. The record breaker was as wide as a table tennis ball. It was 39.31 millimeters in diameter. It was 10 times heavier than a regular blueberry. The farmer said he was happy to be verified by Guinness World Records. He said his fruit was because of good breeding. The blueberry is from the Eterna variety. The farmer said this is a consistently large fruit with a great flavor. He added, while the fruit is large, there's absolutely no compromise on quality or flavor. At first, he was unsure if he had broken the record. He said he had to check the weighing scales to make sure. When asked what he would do with his prize berry, he said he might use it in a smoothie.
Giant blueberry smashes record for heaviest ever. A farmer in Australia has just entered the record books for growing the world's biggest ever blueberry. The giant berry weighed in at a mammoth 20.4 grams. This obliterated the previous record, which was 16.2 grams. The record breaker had a width the size of that of a table tennis ball, a diameter of 39.31 millimeters, and a 12.35 centimeter circumference. The record-breaking berry was almost 10 times heavier than a regular blueberry. The fruit was grown by staff at the Costa Group in New South Wales, Australia. Senior horticulturalist Brad Hawking said he was overjoyed to have the record officially verified by Guinness World Records. He said, "It's a combination of good breeding and good growing." Mr. Hawking said his blueberry was from the Eterna variety, known for its crisp texture and long shelf life. He told reporters, "Eterna, as a variety, has a really great flavor and a consistently large fruit. When we picked this one, there were probably around 20 other berries of a similar size." He added, "While the fruit is large, there's absolutely no compromise on quality or flavor, as would be expected when developing a premium variety." At first, he was unsure whether he had broken the record. He said, "We had to recalibrate the scales to make sure we weren't getting mixed up." When asked what he would do with his prize berry, he suggested a smoothie might be the most fitting end for it.
Human speech is 8 times older than we thought. Researchers may have found the time in history when humans first spoke. An expert believes that language started 1.6 million years ago. This is 8 times earlier than we thought. Experts thought spoken human language began 200,000 years ago. Studies show that the first human language developed in Africa. The expert said speech was, without doubt, the key which made much of human physical and cultural evolution possible. The expert wrote about human speech in a book called The Language Puzzle. He says our brain got bigger 1.5 million years ago. An area for language developed in our brain. Another important development was of tissue that could make sounds, and therefore speech. Speech allowed humans to move all over the world. It meant humans could think of and plan future actions, and they could pass on knowledge.
Human speech is 8 times older than we thought. Researchers say they have found the likely time in history when human beings first began to speak. Dr. Stephen Mithen, an archaeologist and expert in prehistory, suggested that basic language was formed around 1.6 million years ago. This is 8 times earlier than many scientists thought. Experts in evolution previously believed that spoken human language began around 200,000 years ago. Mithen said his studies show that the first human language developed either in Eastern or Southern Africa. He said the ability to speak helped evolution. He said speech was, without doubt, the key which made much of subsequent human physical and cultural evolution possible. Dr. Mithun explains how he believes human speech developed so long ago in his new book called The Language Puzzle. He says our brain quickly increased in size just over 1.5 million years ago. This increase changed the structure of our brain. An area called the frontal lobe developed. This is the part of the brain that produces language. Another important change was the development of our vocal tract. This is where we produce sound and therefore speech. Mithun said speech allowed humans to spread around the world. It meant humans could do three important things. They could think of and plan future actions, and they could pass on knowledge. Mithun said language changed the human story profoundly.
UN warns of environmental e-waste catastrophe. The UN issued a warning about the amount of electronics we are throwing away. It is at record levels. The US is worried about an environmental catastrophe. Electronic waste often contains toxic chemicals like mercury. The UN reported that in 2022, we created 62 million tons of e-waste. CNN said this could fill more than 1.5 million 40-ton trucks, which, if placed bumper to bumper, could wrap around the equator. A lot of e-waste is sent to poor countries for recycling. However, they often cannot recycle in a way that minimizes environmental damage. E-waste is creating many health problems. It is poisoning rivers and seas. Worryingly, 58 tons of mercury entered the environment and food chain last year. The UN blamed manufacturers for failing to accept responsibility for what happens to their products. It also blamed consumerism.
UN warns of environmental e-waste catastrophe. The United Nations has issued a stark warning to consumers worldwide. The volume of electronics we are throwing away is creating an environmental catastrophe. We are disposing of record amounts of e-waste. The UN defines electronics as anything with a plug or a battery and often contains toxic chemicals and substances such as lead and mercury. E-waste includes discarded cell phones, refrigerators, and e-cigarettes. The UN Global E-Waste Monitor has reported that in 2022, the world generated a mind-blowing 62 million tons of e-waste. CNN said this waste could fill more than 1.5 million 40-ton trucks, which, if placed bumper to bumper, could wrap around the equator. Most e-waste comes from developed countries. A lot of it is sent to poorer countries for recycling. However, these countries lack the technology and resources to dispose of it in a way that minimizes environmental damage. The sheer volume of waste is creating a plethora of health problems. Dumped electronics are poisoning rivers and seas. A disturbing 58 tons of mercury entered the environment last year. Some of this enters the food chain. The UN blamed manufacturers for showing a lack of duty of care by failing to accept responsibility for what happens to their products. It also blamed consumers, saying, it's just a few clicks to buy electronics, but it's far more difficult to dispose of them.
Climate change increases price of Easter eggs. Easter eggs will be more expensive this year because of climate change. Extreme weather is making cocoa more difficult to grow. Cocoa beans are used to make chocolate. Most of the world's cocoa beans come from West Africa. Heatwaves and heavy rains have cut cocoa bean harvests. Reuters said cocoa prices have more than doubled in the past year. A climate analyst said cocoa farmers were struggling in the face of both extreme heat and rainfall. People give chocolate eggs at Easter. This celebrates the resurrection of Jesus. Chocolate eggs first appeared in France in 1725. In 1873, an English chocolate company made the first hollow chocolate egg. It was like the ones we can buy today. Wikipedia says, in Western cultures, the giving of chocolate eggs is now commonplace. However, climate analysts say we need to cut fossil fuel emissions to have cocoa and chocolate.
Climate change increases price of Easter eggs. This year's Easter eggs will be much more expensive than last year's. The reason is climate change. Extreme weather patterns have made growing cocoa more challenging. Cocoa beans are used to make chocolate. Around 70% of the world's cocoa beans are grown in West Africa. Recent heatwaves, droughts, and heavy rain in Ghana and the Ivory Coast have greatly reduced the amount of cocoa beans grown. Temperatures have been 4 degrees higher than normal. The Reuters news agency said cocoa prices have more than doubled compared to this time last year. Amber Sawyer, an energy and climate analyst, said farmers in West Africa were struggling in the face of both extreme heat and rainfall. Chocolate eggs are given as gifts for the Christian holiday of Easter, which celebrates the resurrection of Jesus. Traditionally, people dyed and painted chicken eggs. Wikipedia says chocolate eggs first appeared at the court of Louis XIV in France in 1725. In 1873, the English chocolate company J.S. Fry produced the first hollow chocolate egg similar to the ones people give today. Wikipedia says, in Western cultures, the giving of chocolate eggs is now commonplace, with 80 million Easter eggs sold in the UK alone. However, climate change is making it more difficult to grow the cocoa beans. Climate analysts say we need to do more to reduce fossil fuel emissions if we want a steady supply of cocoa and chocolate.
AI an extinction level threat, says study by experts. Artificial intelligence is an existential threat. So says a US report, which painted a worst-case scenario, extinction-level threat, to humanity. It identified a growing risk to national security. The report said there was a clear and urgent need for the government to intervene, quickly and decisively. It said AI could destabilize global security, in ways reminiscent of the introduction of nuclear weapons. It called for the regulation of AI companies. The report was commissioned by the U.S. State Department. Experts spoke at length to AI companies like OpenAI and Google. The experts recommended upper limits on the amount of computing power for an AI model. They also recommended making it illegal to reveal the coding behind AI. The Futurism.com website spoke to researchers who said there's a 5% chance that humans will be driven to extinction.
AI an extinction level threat, says study by experts. A report commissioned by the U.S. State Department has warned of the existential threat from artificial intelligence. The report posited a worst-case scenario, extinction-level threat to humanity. The authors identified a growing risk to national security posed by rapidly expanding AI capabilities from weaponization and loss of control. The report added that there was a clear and urgent need for the U.S. government to intervene quickly and decisively. It continued, the rise of advanced AI has the potential to destabilize global security in ways reminiscent of the introduction of nuclear weapons. The report calls for a new federal agency to regulate companies developing AI tools and to limit the growth of AI. The 247-page report was commissioned by the State Department in November 2022. It was written by a company that provides technical briefings and guidance on AI. The authors spoke extensively to experts at AI companies like OpenAI, Google DeepMind, and Meta. The authors recommended setting an upper limit on how much computing power an AI model could have. They also recommended making it a criminal offense to open source or reveal the coding behind more powerful AI models. The Futurism.com website stated over half of the AI researchers surveyed say there's a 5% chance that humans will be driven to extinction, among other extremely bad outcomes.
Gmail celebrates its 20th birthday. Gmail had its 20th birthday on Monday. When it started, on the 1st of April, 2004, it changed everything. It offered 1 gigabyte of storage for free. Other email companies only gave 15 megabytes. Some people thought it was a joke because it started on April Fool's Day. However, Gmail became a must-have tool. Another reason for Gmail's success is that it searched mails very quickly and was great at filtering spam. More than 1.7 billion people use Gmail. It now has 15 gigabytes of free storage. It also has new features. One of these is a one-click unsubscribe button. Another is an undo send button. Users can stop a mail from being sent even after they click send. The PC Mag website said Gmail is so fixed in so many people's lives that hardly anyone thinks much about it. Maybe people will use Gmail forever.
Gmail celebrates its 20th birthday. The world's most utilized email provider turned 20 on Monday. Gmail was launched on the 1st of April, 2004. At that time, it was revolutionary because it offered a huge amount of storage and it was free. Some people thought it was a hoax because it was announced on April Fool's Day. However, it was no joke. Gmail offered an enormous 1 gigabyte of storage for free. Many other providers only provided 15 megabytes. At first, people could only sign up for Gmail after receiving an invitation. It became a must-have tool for technology fans. Another reason for Gmail's success is that it searched mails faster than any other email service at the time. It was also better at filtering spam. Since 2004, Gmail has become the world's biggest email provider. More than 1.7 billion people use it. That's 20% of the world population. Around 45% of email users in the USA use it. Over the years, Google has increased its free storage to 15 gigabytes and has added many new features. One of these is a one-click unsubscribe button to keep unwanted mail away. Another feature is an undo send button. This allows users to stop a mail from being sent after clicking send. The PC Mag website said Gmail is an important part of life today. It wrote, Gmail is so embedded in so many people's lives that hardly anyone thinks much about it. It is likely people will use it forever.
Rockets and planes chase the solar eclipse. Pilots have chased a total eclipse of the sun. It happened while people in North America looked at this rare, celestial event. NASA sent high-altitude planes with special sensors and instruments to gather information from the eclipse. Pilots flew 15,240 meters high to get a view of the corona, the sun's outer surface. NASA also fired rockets into Earth's upper atmosphere to try to find out about some of the sun's mysteries. A total solar eclipse blocks the sun and momentarily turns day to night. Totality means the sun's corona is 1,000,000 times dimmer than the sun. A solar astrophysicist explained that total solar eclipses let us study and see the corona in ways that just would not be possible at any other time. Solar eclipses often confuse animals. They wake up nocturnal animals and make birds fall silent. Motorists should slow down, as visibility can change.
Rockets and planes chase the solar eclipse. Astronomers and pilots chased a solar eclipse across the heavens on Monday. This occurred while millions of people in Canada, the USA, and Mexico gazed into the sky to catch a glimpse of a rare celestial event. A total eclipse of the sun. The sun, moon, and Earth aligned to block the view of the sun's disk. NASA equipped its high-altitude WB-57 planes with special sensors and instrumentation to gather information from the unique solar event. Pilots navigated a path within the eclipse, 15,240 meters high, to get a view of the corona, the sun's outer surface. NASA also fired rockets into Earth's upper atmosphere, known as the ionosphere, to try to unravel some of the sun's greatest mysteries. A total solar eclipse happens when the moon obscures the face of the sun from view. This celestial phenomenon momentarily turns day to night. Totality means the sun's corona becomes 1,000,000 times dimmer than the sun's disk. This makes it easier for scientists to observe and study the sun. Dr. Amir Kasbi, a solar astrophysicist, explained that total solar eclipses let us study and see the corona in ways that just would not be possible at any other time and in any other way. Solar eclipses often have confusing effects on nature. They briefly stir nocturnal creatures and make birds and insects fall silent. Motorists can also be affected and should slow down as lighting and visibility conditions change.
Chechnya bans music that is too slow or too fast. Chechnya has made a rule about music speed. It has banned songs that are too fast or too slow. It said all music and songs should have a tempo of between 80 to 116 beats per minute. 80 beats per minute is much slower than most modern pop music. However, Russia's national anthem is 76 beats per minute. There has been no word about whether it can be played. It seems likely it will not have to follow the new rule. The ban on up-tempo and down-tempo music is to protect Chechnya's culture. The Moscow Times said it was to root out any hint of westernization. Chechnya's leader said, borrowing musical culture from other peoples is not allowed. The culture minister said the ban will give children their cultural heritage. Local artists must rewrite their songs to follow the new rule. People will no longer be able to listen to techno music or many pop songs.
Chechnya bans music that is too slow or too fast. The Culture Ministry of the Russian Republic of Chechnya has made a rule about what speed of music people can listen to. The ministry has banned songs that are too fast or too slow. It made an announcement about the tempo of songs allowed. It said, from now on, all musical, vocal, and choreographic works should correspond to a tempo of between 80 to 116 beats per minute. The new standard, which starts at 80 beats per minute, is much slower than a lot of modern-day pop music. However, the Russian national anthem is usually played at 76 beats per minute. There has been no word from the Culture Ministry about whether the anthem can be played. It seems likely the anthem will be an exception to the new rule. The ban on music that is too up-tempo or too down-tempo is to protect Chechnya's culture and traditions. The Moscow Times said it was to root out any hint of westernization. Chechnya's leader, Ramzan Kadyrov, said the ban was to make music conform to the Chechen mentality. He added, borrowing musical culture from other peoples is inadmissible. Musa Dadaev, Chechnya's culture minister, said, we must bring to the people and to the future of our children the cultural heritage of the Chechen people. Local artists have until June the 1st to rewrite their songs to follow the new tempo. People in Chechnya will no longer be able to listen to techno music or many songs by Beyoncé, Drake, and Taylor Swift.
Rising auto insurance premiums fueling inflation. Rising car insurance costs are adding to inflationary pressures. Costs are rising at their fastest ever rates. They are a huge 22.2% higher than this time last year. No other category of spending has increased like car insurance. The average cost of car insurance in the US is over $2,300 per year. Rising prices are affecting the lowest paid most. Insurance is a huge burden for people struggling to survive in the cost of living crisis. An industry analyst said the biggest factor for costlier insurance was the number of new cars. He said, if you wreck your car, the replacement cost is really high. He said technology in modern cars is expensive to repair and replace. A new battery in an electric car can cost up to $20,000. Even a simple fender bender could damage sensors and cameras. One factor that is increasing labor costs is a shortage of car mechanics.
Rising auto insurance premiums fueling inflation. Skyrocketing auto insurance premiums are fueling inflationary pressures in the USA. Costs have been rising at their fastest ever rates. Premiums jumped 2.6% in March alone, which means costs are a whopping 22.2% higher than this time last year. The increases contributed to inflation rising by 0.4% last month. No other category of spending has soared as much as auto insurance. FoxBusiness.com said the average cost of car insurance in the U.S. has surpassed $2,300 per year, which amounts to about $192 a month. The rising prices are impacting the lowest paid most. Insurance is becoming more of a financial burden for those struggling to make ends meet in the cost of living crisis. Automotive analyst Sean Tucker tried to explain what is behind the rising prices. He said, I think the biggest factor is a combination of new cars and them being more expensive, so if you wreck your car, the replacement cost is really high, and a fender bender is very expensive right now. He attributed the sophistication of technology, gadgetry, and safety equipment in modern cars to more expensive repair and replacement costs. The cost of replacing the battery in an electric car can range from $6,500 to well over $20,000. A simple fender bender is likely to damage costly embedded sensors, cameras, and sonar. One factor driving up labor costs is a shortage of car mechanics.
Seafood could have higher levels of forever chemicals. A study says high levels of forever chemicals may be in seafood. Forever chemicals are man-made toxins. They stay in our blood and lead to health issues. These include cancer and kidney problems. Researchers said we need safety guidelines for these chemicals in seafood, especially for marine creatures like prawns and lobster. People who love sushi and prawn cocktails may have to change their diet and eat less seafood. Forever chemicals were created in the 1930s. Today, they are found in food packaging, food wrappers, and food containers. Over the decades, the chemicals have entered our food chain. A professor wants people to enjoy seafood, but also to be aware of the risks. She said, "Our recommendation isn't to not eat seafood." She thinks it is important for us to understand more about what is in the food we eat.
Seafood could have higher levels of forever chemicals. A new study has suggested that higher levels of forever chemicals may exist in seafood. Forever chemicals are man-made toxins that do not break down. They can stay in human blood and lead to a variety of health issues. These include cancer, kidney and liver problems, hormonal changes, and damage to the development of babies in the womb. Researchers from Dartmouth College in the USA said there should be safety guidelines for forever chemicals in seafood. They say that the level of these toxins is highest in marine creatures like shrimp, prawns, and lobster. This could mean people who love sushi, sashimi, and prawn cocktails may have to rethink their diet and eat a little less seafood. Forever chemicals were developed in the 1930s. Since the 1950s, they have been used to make many products. They are commonly found in food packaging. Most of our food wrappers, takeout containers, pizza boxes, and other food holders contain the chemicals. Over the decades, these chemicals have entered our food chain. Researchers said they were in higher levels in seafood. Professor Megan Romano said she wanted people to continue to enjoy seafood, but to be aware of the risks. She said, "Our recommendation isn't to not eat seafood. Seafood is a great source of lean protein and omega fatty acids." She added it was important for people to understand more about what is in the food we eat.
UK leader cracks down on sick note culture. Britain is cracking down on the nation's sick note culture. The UK's leader, Rishi Sunak, believes too many people are claiming welfare benefits because of mental health issues. The leader said this was a drain on the economy and was creating labour shortages. The most common reason for doctors to issue sick notes is mental health. Mr. Sunak said, "We need to change the sick note culture so the default becomes what work you can do, not what you can't." Sunak wants people off benefits and back to work. He said, "We must be more honest about over-medicalising the everyday worries of life." He said half of people who became inactive recently cited depression and anxiety. Many people blame Sunak for this crisis. A charity said, "Services are at breaking point following years of underinvestment." Opposition politicians called Sunak's plans another front for their culture wars.
UK leader cracks down on sick note culture. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has announced plans to crack down on what he has labelled Britain's sick note culture. The leader believes there are too many people in the UK claiming welfare benefits because of mental health issues. He said welfare payments were a drain on the economy and the number of people not working was creating labour shortages. The number of sick notes issued by doctors has risen sharply since the coronavirus pandemic in 2020. The most common diagnoses being given by doctors are related to mental health and behavioral disorders. Sunak said, "We need to change the sick note culture so the default becomes what work you can do, not what you can't." Mr. Sunak has emphasized the need to get people back into employment. He said, "We need to be more ambitious about helping people back to work and more honest about the risk of over-medicalizing the everyday challenges and worries of life." He added, half of people becoming inactive over the last year cited depression and anxiety. Opponents of Sunak's plans say his government caused the current crisis. The mental health charity Mind said, "The truth is that services are at breaking point following years of underinvestment." The opposition Labour Party called Sunak's plans another front for their culture wars. It said the government was tone-deaf, shameless, and irresponsible.
Milan wants to ban takeaway food after midnight. Milan wants to ban the sale of takeaway food after midnight. This is to help local people sleep. People are angry about the noise on the streets at night. Milan wants to ban takeaway food in 12 areas of the city. Some of these areas are known for their wild nightlife. The takeaway ban means people would not be able to buy pizza after 12:30 a.m. on weekdays. The ban would start in mid-May and continue until November. Milan's deputy mayor said the goal is a balance between entertainment and the peace of residents. However, many people do not like the ban. A spokesperson for stores said the food ban would not stop the noise. He said a ban on eating pizza won't solve a thing. He said people would stay outside. He said a 25-year-old would not go home at night because they cannot get a takeaway. He also said tourists want to eat ice cream.
Milan wants to ban takeaway food after midnight. The Italian city of Milan wants to introduce a law to ban the sale of takeaway food after midnight. The reason for this is to help local residents sleep. Many people have complained to the local government about the noise on the streets at night. There are often large and noisy groups of late-night revelers in downtown Milan. Local officials have decided to ban all takeaway food and drink in 12 districts of the city. Some of these areas are well known for their wild nightlife. The takeaway ban means people would not be able to buy pizza or ice cream after 12:30 a.m. on weekdays and after 1:30 a.m. at weekends and on public holidays. It would come into effect from mid-May and last until November. Milan's deputy mayor explained why the ban was important. He said, "The goal is to seek a balance between socializing and entertainment and the peace and tranquility of residents." However, there are also many people who oppose the ban. A spokesperson for an Italian retail association said the ban on post-midnight food and drink would not stop the noise. He said, "A rule banning people from drinking a bottle of water or eating an ice cream or pizza while taking a stroll won't solve a thing, as people will still stay outside." He asked, "Do you think a 25-year-old is going to go home at the stroke of midnight simply because they can't get a takeout?" He added, "What about tourists who want to eat ice cream?"
Town to erect fence to stop Mount Fuji selfies. Over-tourism is causing headaches for authorities and residents in Japan. The weaker yen has meant people are flocking to see Japan's sights and sample its world-famous cuisine. A town at the foot of Mount Fuji is taking action to combat the problem. The town is being flooded with sightseers taking selfies in front of a convenience store with Fujisan in the background. The town will make a giant fence to block the view of Japan's iconic mountain. A local official said the tourists were throwing trash in the streets and blocking traffic. The town has employed security guards to control selfie takers. The official said it was regrettable to have to erect the fence, which will be 20 meters long and 25 meters high. Other places in Japan are also battling over-tourism. Locals in Kyoto cannot get on overcrowded buses. Areas of Kyoto have been closed to tourists to stop people harassing geisha.
Town to erect fence to stop Mount Fuji selfies. Over-tourism is causing headaches for authorities and consternation for local residents worldwide. Japan is one country that is battling surging numbers of international tourists. The weaker yen has meant people are flocking to see Japan's numerous World Heritage sites and sample its world-famous cuisine. A town near Mount Fuji has devised a drastic measure to combat the problem of over-tourism. Fujikawaguchiko, which is at the foot of Fuji, has become inundated with sightseers who want selfies of themselves in front of a brightly colored convenience store, with Fujisan as the backdrop. Local authorities have decided to erect a giant mesh fence to obscure the view of Japan's iconic mountain. A local official told journalists that the increasing number of tourists was creating problems for residents. These include trash being left in the streets, traffic being blocked, and security guards being employed to marshal selfie takers. The official said of the fence, "It is regrettable that we had to take such measures." She added that it was because of some tourists who cannot respect rules. The fence will be 20 meters long and 2.5 meters high. Other places in Japan are also battling large numbers of overseas visitors. Locals in the ancient city of Kyoto cannot board increasingly overcrowded buses. Areas of Kyoto have been closed to tourists to prevent people harassing geisha in a problem dubbed as geisha paparazzi.
Men sleep better than women, study finds. Men may sleep better than women. Because of this, women need different treatments for sleep disorders. Insomnia is 1.5 times more common among women. One reason for this is our body clock. Women have about 6 minutes less time per day to rest. Another reason is motherhood. There are unequal stresses on mothers. A doctor said it's almost like their brain was half listening out for their children in the middle of the night. The stress of everyday life means more of us are finding it difficult to sleep. Around 30% of people experience sleep deprivation. A lack of sleep can lead to life-threatening illnesses. These include diabetes and heart disease. Insufficient sleep can also negatively impact our concentration and lead to poorer mental health. A neurologist said, "There is a high correlation with underlying psychiatric disorders and insomnia."
Men sleep better than women, study finds. A new study has discovered that men may sleep better than women. Researchers say that because of this, sleep disorders experienced by the sexes need to be treated differently. Insomnia is about 1.5 times more common among women than men. The researchers say that one reason for this is our circadian rhythms, our body clock. Women's circadian cycles are about 6 minutes shorter than men's. This means women physically have less time in which to rest. Another reason is motherhood, which places unequal strains and burdens on mothers. Dr. Elena Tiani said, "It's almost like their brain was half listening out for their children in the middle of the night, in case they needed something." People worldwide are finding it increasingly harder to get a good night's rest. The stress and pressures of day-to-day life mean more of us are struggling to get 40 winks. It is estimated that around 30% of the global population is experiencing sleep deprivation. This is having adverse effects on our health. A lack of sleep can lead to detrimental and often life-threatening health conditions. These include diabetes, heart disease, and hypertension. Insufficient sleep can also negatively impact our powers to concentrate and lead to a deterioration in mental health. Neurologist Dr. Eric Sklar said, "There is a high correlation with underlying psychiatric disorders and insomnia."
Beethoven's Ninth Symphony is 200 years old. Beethoven's Ninth Symphony was played in Vienna for its 200th anniversary. The premiere of Beethoven's masterpiece took place in Vienna on the 7th of May, 1824. Beethoven lived and worked in Vienna for most of his life. He wrote many of his famous works there. A woman who sang in the choir told the BBC, "It's the whole world to us to be able to sing this wonderful message of love. You're lifted up when you're singing." Beethoven's Ninth Symphony is one of the greatest and most widely recognized pieces of music ever written. The symphony's fourth movement is called Ode to Joy. A version of Ode to Joy is the anthem of the European Union. The ode represents peace and international understanding. The singer in the choir said Beethoven's Ninth was wonderful. She said it moves from the darkness to the light.
Beethoven's Ninth Symphony is 200 years old. Beethoven's Ninth Symphony has been played in Vienna to mark the 200th anniversary of its first performance. The premiere of Beethoven's masterpiece took place at a theater in Austria's capital city on the 7th of May, 1824. Vienna is the city where the German composer lived and worked for much of his life. He composed many of his most famous works there. The anniversary performance earlier this week was conducted by the world-famous Italian conductor Riccardo Muti. A member of the choir told the BBC how happy she was to sing in the 200-year celebration. She said, "It's the whole world to us to be able to sing this wonderful message of love. You're lifted up when you're singing." The Ninth Symphony is believed to be one of the greatest pieces of music ever written. It is also one of the most played and most widely recognized classical works. The symphony's final part, the fourth movement, is called Ode to Joy. This was revolutionary 200 years ago because it used solo voices and a choir. An adapted version of Ode to Joy is the anthem of the European Union. It is loved and played by orchestras worldwide. In Japan, it is sung each December by a choir of 10,000 singers. The ode represents peace and international understanding. Heidrun Irene Mittermeier, a singer in a Viennese choir, called Beethoven's Ninth, a wonderful message of love. She added that it moves from the darkness to the light.
Anti-oil protesters try to damage the Magna Carta. Climate protesters tried to damage a world-famous document, the Magna Carta. Two women in their 80s went to the British Library to attack the document. They damaged the document's case using a hammer and a chisel. Police charged them with criminal damage. Security officers stopped them from doing further damage. The Magna Carta stayed safe. The women are from the Just Stop Oil group. They accused the UK of breaking climate laws. The Magna Carta is a royal charter from 1215. It states that everyone is equal under the law. It guarantees everyone a fair trial with a jury. Historians say the document influenced the development of Western democracy and the US Constitution. The two protesters said the Magna Carta was important for our freedoms. They added that there will be no freedom, no lawfulness, no rights, if we allow climate breakdown.
Anti-oil protesters tried to damage the Magna Carta. Two climate activists have tried to damage one of the world's oldest and most famous documents, the Magna Carta. The women are both in their 80s. They went to the British Library in London and attacked the glass case that contained the Magna Carta. The women used a hammer and a chisel to try to break the glass. Police have charged the women with criminal damage. The British Library said its security staff intervened to prevent further damage to the case. It added that the Magna Carta itself remains undamaged. The women are from the Just Stop Oil protest group. They held up a sign that read, "The government is breaking the law." The women also glued themselves to the case. The Magna Carta is a royal charter that was agreed to by King John of England on the 15th of June, 1215. It stated that everyone was equal under the law. It also guaranteed that everyone should have a fair trial, with a jury. Historians say the Magna Carta was the foundation for the development of Western democracy. In particular, it influenced the U.S. Constitution. The two protesters said, "The Magna Carta is of great importance to our history, to our freedoms, and to our laws. But there will be no freedom, no lawfulness, no rights, if we allow climate breakdown to become the catastrophe that is now threatened." They added, "Our government is breaking its own laws against climate change."
Internet access good for our health. Internet access is good for our health. A report suggests that being connected to the web is positive for us. Researchers looked at 2 million people's internet use and health from 168 countries. The data was from the years 2006 to 2021. The researchers looked at 8 factors that affect people's well-being. These included life satisfaction and social life. The researchers said people with internet access were 8% happier. One surprising conclusion was that using the internet was as good as walking in nature. Researchers said the internet helps people to learn new things and make friends. However, the research did not look at social media. A researcher said, "The study cannot contribute to the recent debate on whether or not social media use is harmful." He added that different channels and uses of the internet have very different effects on well-being.
Internet access good for our health. A new study says internet access is good for our health. A report from the Oxford Internet Institute in the UK suggested that being connected to the World Wide Web has a positive effect on our well-being. Researchers looked at data on people's internet use and mental health from 168 countries. The data was gathered between the years 2006 and 2021. It included information on 2 million people aged 15 to 99. The research team looked at 8 factors that affect people's well-being. These included life satisfaction, positive experiences, and happiness with social life. The team found that people with internet access were 8% happier than those without web access. The research included some surprising conclusions. One was the suggestion that internet access had a similar, positive effect to walking in nature. It helps people to learn new things, practice hobbies, watch movies, and make new friends. However, the research did not look at how social media impacted people's lives. Many recent studies show that social media is having a negative effect on people's mental health. Researcher Tobias Dienland said, "The study cannot contribute to the recent debate on whether or not social media use is harmful or whether or not smartphones should be banned at schools." He added that different channels and uses of the internet have vastly different effects on well-being.
France issues scratch-and-sniff baguette stamp. The French post office, La Poste, issued a special stamp to honour the baguette, France's national bread. The stamp is covered with tiny capsules that release the smell of fresh bread. It shows a baguette decorated with a red, white and blue ribbon. A shopkeeper who sells the scratch-and-sniff stamp said it had a bakery smell. The stamp had a print run of 594,000 copies. La Poste said French bakers bake 6 billion baguettes every year. The baguette is close to the hearts of French people. France's president called it 250 grams of magic and perfection. La Poste called the baguette the symbol of our gastronomy, the jewel of our culture. It said the bread was popular because it promises a delicious taste experience and it seduces with its golden crust. It added that the baguette's toasted scent whets the appetite. The baguette was given UNESCO heritage status in 2022.
France issues scratch and sniff baguette stamp. The French post office, La Poste, has issued a commemorative postage stamp to honor France's famous bread, the baguette. The new stamp is not a run-of-the-mill issue. Its surface is coated with tiny capsules that, once broken, release the fragrance of freshly baked bread. The €1.96 stamp depicts a baguette decorated with a red, white, and blue ribbon. A shopkeeper in the heart of Paris that sells the scratch-and-sniff stamp said it had a bakery smell. The stamp was launched on Thursday to celebrate the day of the patron saint of bakers and pastry chefs. La Poste said it had an initial print run of 594,000 copies. It also said French bakers bake more than 6 billion baguettes every year. The baguette is very close to the hearts of French people. France's President Emmanuel Macron once described it as being 250 grams of magic and perfection. La Poste wrote about the French loaf on its website. It called the baguette the bread of our daily lives, the symbol of our gastronomy, the jewel of our culture. It explained why the baguette was so popular. It said, "It is the promise of a delectable sensory experience. On view, it seduces with its golden crust. Fresh from the oven, its toasted scent whets the appetite." The baguette was given UNESCO heritage status in 2022. La Poste called the bread an ambassador of the bakery craft. It said the baguette transcends borders to become an international icon.
Cycling is good for your knees, says study. Cycling keeps us fit and healthy. It is good for our heart and our mental health. A surprising benefit of cycling is it is good for our knees. A new study says cyclists have less knee pain when they get older. Researchers looked at 2,600 people with an average age of 64. They asked the people about their physical activity. They also took X-rays of the people's knees. The researchers checked the X-rays for signs of arthritis in the knees. Researcher Dr. Grace Lowe was surprised by the research. She said cyclists were 21% less likely to have a joint problem in their knees called osteoarthritis. This happens when we use our joints a lot. The joints wear out and become painful. Osteoarthritis usually starts when people are in their 50s. Dr. Lowe said cycling was a great way of stopping arthritis. A lot of research shows that cyclists are 20% less likely to die too early.
Cycling is good for your knees, says study. Cycling is a great way to keep fit and healthy. It strengthens our heart, keeps our weight down, and is good for mental health. A little known and, perhaps surprising benefit of getting on a bike is that it is good for our knees. A new study says cyclists are less likely to experience knee pain later in life than people who do not ride bicycles. The study was conducted by a research team from Baylor College of Medicine in the USA. Researchers surveyed 2,600 men and women with an average age of 64. The survey participants were asked about their levels of physical activity. They also had X-rays of their knees taken. This was to look for signs and levels of arthritis in their knee joints. The lead researcher, Dr. Grace Lowe, said the results of the research were surprising. She said cyclists were 21% less likely to have signs of osteoarthritis compared to those who did not have a history of cycling. She added, "I was surprised to see how very strong the benefit of cycling was." A lot of research shows that cyclists are around 20% less likely to die prematurely. Dr. Lowe said cycling is a great preventative strategy for many things, including arthritis. Osteoarthritis is often called wear and tear arthritis. It's what happens when we use the cartilage in our joints a lot. The cartilage wears down and becomes painful. Arthritis most commonly affects the over 50s.
Ghanaian 1-year-old world's youngest artist. Guinness World Records has recognized a toddler from Ghana as the world's youngest artist. Ace Liam Nanasam Ankara was 1 year and 152 days old when he entered the record books. His mother, Chantel, said it was obvious her son had artistic talent when he was 6 months old. She explained how he began painting. She said she gave Ace Liam a canvas and some paint. He had an affinity for colour, as he crawled over the canvas. Ace Liam is attracting attention across the art world. His work was shown at Ghana's Museum of Science. He sold 9 of the 10 pieces on show. Ghana's First Lady asked him for a painting. Chantal said her son is creating interest with his artistic flair. She said he has lit a conversation about art appreciation. She added, "His abstract paintings are inspired by the world around him." Guinness said Ace Liam has an exciting career ahead of him.
Ghanaian 1-year-old world's youngest artist. A toddler from Ghana has officially been recognized as the world's youngest artist. Guinness World Records acknowledged Ace Liam Nana Samankra when he was just 1 year and 152 days old. The little boy began painting at the age of 6 months, when his precocious talent became evident. His mother Chantal, also an artist, said it was obvious her son had artistic talent from that young age. She explained how he started painting. Chantal had been commissioned to create a work for Miss Universe 2023. While she was working, she gave Ace Liam a canvas and some paint. She said he clearly had an affinity for color as he crawled over the canvas. Chantal named his first piece The Crawl. Ace Liam is attracting attention across the art world. His work was exhibited at Ghana's Museum of Science in January. 9 of the 10 pieces on show at that exhibition sold. Art lovers have purchased a further 6 of his paintings this year. Even Ghana's First Lady Rebecca Akufo-Addo commissioned work from the toddler. Chantal said her son is creating a stir with his artistic flair. She said he has created a buzz and heightened the conversation about art appreciation. She said his abstract paintings are inspired by the world around him, colors, shapes, textures, and his mood. Guinness said, "There is no doubt that Ace Liam has an exciting career ahead of him, and we can't wait to see what comes next."